I spent my career really serving as a systems analyst and a business analyst, and I was really solving organizational problems. How do we, increase shareholder value? How do we save the company money? How do we increase all this productivity? And so I did that for many, many years, and then I actually started House Solutions in 2009 because I saw a need that companies needed IT support, and everybody did not have the time or the resources to have their own IT company. And so I started working with companies, and what we found while we were working and helping them with their technology, we found out that they were missing a lot of other things, right? So they needed the legal support, right, to review contracts. They needed HR to help with some onboarding of employees. They needed the marketing to help with website and social media. So all these things happened, and so House Solutions really almost kind of became, for a lot of companies, almost like the quarterback, and really kind of helping them manage all of these, what they call today, fractional services. All of these other extra support that you need when you don't have the money, right, or the projects to hire, right? You have the freelancers, you have all these other people. So that's why I thought it was super important. We wear so many hats. We have to relinquish some of these duties if we are able to grow and scale. I think that was a long answer, but that was why I picked this subject.
All right, well, thank you. Arian, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you started your business and what did your back office look like when you first started?
Interesting enough, I learned to build my back office by failing in my back office in several businesses before. I am a serial entrepreneur. I've had a restaurant, a copy business, and I've been in construction pretty much all my life. When I had my construction company about 25 years ago, there was no back office. There were, I didn't understand 941s, I didn't understand the legal aspect, I didn't understand accounting. I was just out there building. I was building and rehabbing and renovating residential and then later commercial properties. But I did not have the business sense to stay in business. And it's interesting because as we love to build, if I want to be an owner of it, we have to understand that key word, business. So it was important that when I started the AKA team to work towards strategies to make sure that my building was successful. And I remember so many people talking about, you always had your little haters out there, and said, oh, she has so many people. She got too many people on her payroll. She got too many people. What is she doing? So besides, my laborers, carpenters, my foreman, I had to make sure that we had a controller, that we had marketing, that my professional services was important, accounting, my legal. I would never ever do that again, start a business without those key ingredients. Also, what was important to me was to be a continuous learner. I made sure that I was involved in programs such as the President's Council, the Emerging Entrepreneur Program, active member. I did the Next Step program with University Circle. I did Goldman Sachs. And then there's another program that I'm looking at to do next. I'm always continuing to grow. And also, what's important is not am I only growing, I have to make sure that my support staff, they're growing also and they're learning. So back office is an intricate part if you want to be successful. It's the decision I made.
Well, thank you, Arian, for that. Chris, you started a one-man shop doing everything yourself. What made you decide to get additional back office support?
Well, those 12 and 14-hour days kind of really settled it for me. And what I realized is we only have 24 hours in a day. And I think one of my moms, one of her sayings was always, even iron wears out at some point. And so we're doing this, it's 100% of zero is zero. So what I figured out is I needed to bring in freelancers and 1099 and these fractional workers to really help grow the business and provide expertise. right? You call them like subject matter experts. And so all these subject matter experts bring in their specialty, and it really makes your company dynamic, especially being a small company. A lot of owners and a lot of project owners truly want to make sure that you're not the only person that is going to provide this service. Because what if you get sick? What if you decide you want to go on vacation? Now they're left in a lurch. So now if you actually have trusted employees, trusted staff that will, mimic, Chris's behavior and services, now you add so much more versatility to your company. So those are one thing. It's collaboration is key. Even in a certification process, they talk about, okay, I'm an MBE, you're a WBE, you're a veteran-owned service. Why can't, you have a 5-man shop, you have a 3-man shop. Why can't we get together, collaborate, create joint ventures, strategic alliances? Now we grow and we're the size that those project owners really rely on, that they want. So that's kind of why I did that. Is collaboration is key. It takes a village. You cannot do this by yourself. It takes a concerted effort for all of us to get together and trust each other, number one, but to also have organizations that are supporting us. NAMC, I think, does an excellent job. There's other organizations, CEA, President's Council, Urban League, University Circle. So they all bring in all their expertise. And I think with all of that coming together, working cohesively, I think that's going to add growth to our region.
Arian, what did you look for when you started asking other businesses or other contractors to help you with your back office? How did you know who to choose?
How did I know how to choose? Well, that's an interesting question. Like-minded people, people that were very experienced in the arena. And let me take that back. Some people in my business, in my back office that actually worked in there on my payroll, may not have chosen that particular career, but I saw something in them and we created that dynamic. So that was real interesting for me because when I first started, I wasn't sure how many people would want to come to a small business, small female black-owned business like mine. And I was a little nervous about putting out job descriptions for our HR or for our controller because I didn't think I was ready. When I took some of the courses like the Emerging Entrepreneur Next Step, I really felt then, okay, yes, I am ready. But a lot of it, I created those positions of people that thought like me. So that was really interesting. And now I'm posting for positions in those different arenas, for our HR. Right now we're looking for an HR director. And I made sure, because that is so important. When you have to turn in your documentation for your closeout of a job, or you have to do your daily, monthly payout information for your pay-ups, and you don't know what you're doing and you don't have the right people in your team, that's just as bad as putting the brick in the wrong place. Because that's a brick, that's a business brick, that's a component that's missing. So I really worked hard on being also an employee of choice. That's another big part of building your back office. You want people to come to you. I want people to be able to have the medical benefits. I want them to have a retirement plan. We have a health plan. So building your back office is just, if not equally important than building that building.
So really it's like having two different companies in a way, right? The one that you actually are doing your services and then behind the scenes, right?
Most definitely. And traditionally, as especially black-owned businesses, and I cannot remember the exact percentage, most of us are solopreneurs.
Yeah, 91%.
91%. And that's a disadvantage, as we saw, especially when we were going through the PPP, where certain businesses had to have a certain amount of employees and we weren't eligible. To be able to get into certain programs, like the Goldman Sachs program, where They were looking for more minority-owned businesses. We were solopreneurs and we didn't have that threshold. So back office is important to be able to get the knowledge that you need to grow your business. So
Right,
yeah.
right. That's very true. I know that many of our minority companies were at a disadvantage also because they weren't able to produce the paperwork.
Yes.
So the PPP required paperwork.
Yes.
And so not only did you need to have employees, but you needed to have the paperwork over a course of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you didn't have that set up and easily able to produce, then you were left out. That's true. So, a lot of people say, Arian and Chris, I don't have the money to hire an attorney. I don't have the money to hire an accountant. How did you guys kind of get there? What were some steps or some things that you were able to do to get those services at the beginning? When you're kind of one-man shop or, as you were starting out or starting to grow.
So I actually looked at and did a comparison. I looked at how much it cost me not to have an accountant, not to have an attorney, especially in the beginning when I had some financial issues. If I would have had the expert handling this, that wouldn't have happened. I had some legal and accounting that weren't big things, but cost me over $200,000. Okay, so let's look at $200,000 mistake. Let's think of I don't want to give the cost of an accountant or an attorney because I don't want to price them out, but it sure cost me way more in that $241,000 mistake than if I would have had the professional services that I needed in the beginning. So it sort of was easy. I had to just make that decision, and I had to put that in my cost. That's a part of doing business. When people want to do business with you, you have to make sure that you put that cost in your cost.
Yeah, that's very true. So I have a completely different story, right? So I actually created a bartering system.
Of course you would.
Well, I have 8 years of outside sales experience, and so it just never leaves me, right? And so my orthodontist, right? I paid him, but he kept me around a long, long time because I worked on his computers and his servers, right? And so I did that work. I had an attorney, and I did some work for him, and I think I created a website for him, right? And so, but it really was, and obviously I got to the point where I was able to pay them, right? But initially, it truly was bartering. And so that was the one thing. And then what happens is I do business with people who do business with me. I dance with people who want to dance with me, right? And so my attorney, guess what? I give him business, and he wants to keep me around, so he gives me business. And all of my people that I work with, whether they're in legal, financial, we help each other, right? And so we make sure, that's how you make sure that your client is always going to be there for you. I have customers, I've written grants for them and put myself in the grant so that they can pay me, right? And so you kind of want to make sure that, your customers and your clients are viable. And then really what we're trying to do at this point is really try to make a difference in workforce development for our region. How do we get people working and doing things that they want to do? And so those are really like passions, right? How do we get people to work? And so I'm working on a couple things now and really partnering with some local agencies on youth who they like to play PlayStation and Xbox, and they have great dexterity. How do we get them and make that a career? And so being small, we come up with all kinds of innovative and creative things to put those people to work, because everyone has value, everyone has a place in society, and we just have to be creative and figure out how to make it work.
So what would you tell businesses right now that they should do immediately to strengthen their back office?
wow. The first steps to me to get it prepared was the Emerging Entrepreneur program that I did with President's Council. That was the first, and emerging was the key word, because it helped me. I knew what I wanted. I still didn't know really exactly how to put it in place, but find a program that'll help you and give you the advice. And you know, a lot of people join programs, and networking is wonderful, and I am a big networker. But don't join a program just to get a contract. Because if you pay attention to what the program has to offer, that is the best way to get the contract. Especially, I want to say it for MBEs and women, you don't want to get contracts on your acronyms. You want to get contracts on what you know how to do and what you have to offer. And bringing that team concept and joining organizations such as the President's Council will help you with the infrastructure to grow your business.
I agree. It's I did emerging entrepreneurs. I did next steps. So I did a lot of different programs that really kind of taught you really how to work on your business versus just working in your business. And there's a difference, right? And so, Arian and we're both very engaged. We are on a lot of boards. We do a lot of civic-minded things. We give back. We do a lot of mentoring. I have 4 kids, but even throughout 4 kids, I have nieces, nephews, cousins, all their friends. And so, you know what? I've always tried to bless them and really pour into them and encourage them because we need that. And so I think that at the end of the day, when we look at how do we make a difference in this region, I think we have to come up with workforce development programs. We have to really be intentional on diversity, equity, and inclusion. One of the things I heard, Ari, you were on a meeting this morning, and I heard you talking through, and you were talking about being intentional. And sometimes that just takes a lot of work from an owner or from someone else, right? Being an apprentice, being, new to the job. I remember one of my sons, he was probably like 10 years old, and he's like, "Dad, I want to mow the lawn, Richard." And I was like, it's going to take me like 3 hours to teach him how to mow the lawn, right? And where it would normally just take me an hour. But I went through and I had him with me, and I was behind him. We would mow the lawn, and it would take 2 to 3 hours. But eventually, as he grew, guess what? He started mowing the lawn himself and really started taking those training wheels off and really became a great contributor to our household, and now is a great contributor to society. So we really do need to be intentional on helping folks. If you want to do it, you'll do it. If you don't want to do it, you'll find a way not to.
So that's interesting, Chris, because I think the other thing that, if you're looking for help, internships, co-ops, all of those kinds of things I think are really important ways to also kind of plug in some of the holes that you may have while you're building and getting more income in to be able to hire additional folks. So it is. We have to give back. We have to teach the next generation. In our call this morning that Ari and I were on, they were talking about the importance of filling that pipeline. And so we all have a responsibility of doing that. And so they can also help us fill our back office. So,
yes.
All right. Well, I want to thank you. This has been an insightful and poignant session, really getting down to the nitty gritty about what is a back office and how do you begin to build one. And so with that, we're going to go ahead and transition to our panel. So if our panelists will go ahead and come up, I'll talk a little bit about NAMC in terms of we have 4 different programs that we serve. We have Rosie's Girls that we work with Friendly Inn on. Friendly Inn, Rosie's Girls focus on grades 6 through 8. These young ladies get to have welding and construction building experiences over the summer. And so we're able to serve young women and expose them to construction. The next program is called CREW, and this is in relationship and partnership with YOU, Youth Opportunities Unlimited. And these young people are 18 to 24 years of age. They learn social skills, life skills, as well as getting certified in different parts of the construction industry. They get forklift certification, they get OSHA 10 certification, and then there are other types of certifications they get through NCCER. And then of course there's the Level Up program, and we want you to be looking forward to our Level Up programs. As a member, you will be getting additional services that are free around things such as reading financial statements, such as estimating, how to do estimation. And so those services are all coming, but you have to be a member of NAMC. So all you have to do is go to NAMC NOC for Northern Ohio Chapter, NAMCNOC.com, and register. So I hope to see more of you there. Okay, without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to our moderator, Christopher House.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Good afternoon, everyone. All right, so I am going to introduce our Lustrous Panel here. And one of the things that when we were actually coming up with this theme and with the message, I wanted to reach back to the people that I know, the group, right, as a connector, and who is actually making a difference in our community. And so these four come to mind, and there's actually quite a few others, but I wanted to share my network, right? And so bring it on here. So let me begin here. So first of all, we have Erica C. Pinnock. And Erica is Executive Director of the President's Council, which acts as a catalyst for inclusion by supporting, developing, and advocating for our region's current and future generations of African American entrepreneurs and leaders for sustainable wealth creation through business development, entrepreneurial support, ecosystem building, organizing and mobilizing, advocacy and thought leadership, and then finally capital formation with investments. This all affects and influences accountability at all levels that directly impacts African American businesses in the communities we serve. Welcome, Erica.
Thank you.
Next we have Michael Bowen. Michael began his law career as an associate at a large Cleveland area firm before joining Calfee, Halter, and Griswold LLP in 2019. Michael has experience as a commercial business litigator representing public and private corporations and public sector entities in litigation involving class action, securities, and labor and employment disputes. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Chris.
Next, we have Laura Kleinman. Laura Kleinman is Vice President of Services for University Circle, Inc., UCI, the development service and advocacy arm for University Circle, and Anchor, District 4 miles east of downtown Cleveland. In this role, Laura oversees a team responsible for maintaining a safe, clean, and vibrant neighborhood, as well as staff responsible for UCI's community and small business education program. During her tenure at UCI, Laura has created shared services program for UCI's 40-plus nonprofit members, resulting in cost savings and access to resources otherwise unobtainable. She also launched UCI's Next Step Strategies for Business Growth, which has graduated nearly 60 small business owners from Northeast Ohio. I think that's the program that Arian and myself spoke about earlier. Welcome, Laura. Next and lastly, we have Kyle B. Jones. Kyle is the founder and president of Kbj Construction. Kbj Construction strategically focuses on general construction management, facilities, and ground maintenance. Kyle has over 27 years of construction experience and was part of the construction management team responsible for high-profile projects such as Jacobs Field and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum. He also has worked on the NASA project and the VA hospital. Kyle, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to get right to it, to our esteemed panelists here, and feel free to answer, as you deem fit there. But number one, and we'll start at my left here. Laura, please tell us more about yourself, your company and organization, and why the topic of building your back office is important to you.
Sure. Thanks, Chris, and thanks for having me. I was going to say, you and Arian did such a good job.
Thank you very
I
much.
don't really know how much more we can add, but we will try. So, Chris mentioned I work at UCI, where I've been for 15 years, but before that, I was, I've been in the community and economic development field for almost 25 years. Short stint working for an injection molding company that made packaging products, but otherwise have done community economic development in the city of Cleveland and nearby, and really enjoy working with small business owners. Really enjoy watching and learning with the small business owner. One of the best things I think that can happen is when that business owner, when you're working with them or you're watching them in the class, have that aha moment. And it's one thing for someone to tell you after the fact, oh, that program was great. I mean, we all like to hear that, right? But to have that aha moment happen in real time, you know, like the information is sinking in, and you know that that's going to have a positive impact on the business and the business owner. So that's what's really rewarding for me. You guys talked about the back office and the importance of the back office. We might all like to think that we are, in business, people are super people, Superman, Superwoman, and maybe you are in certain ways, but you're not, and if you are, you're going to burn out at some point. So it's so critical that you are able to kind of look inside yourself and look at what your strengths are and maybe where some of those challenges are, and begin to figure out how to put back office makes it sound so formal. It could just be one person, helping you with some of those different responsibilities that may not be your strength, but it's really going to allow you to grow and propel yourself.
Excellent.
Well, back office to me is the controller, as Arian talked about, somebody who's really looking at the numbers, that really understands your business and making sure that you're making the right financial decisions. And so much of what we do, even though we do construction, depends on the numbers. The numbers have to look good for the bank. The numbers have to look good for the bonding company. The numbers just need to look good. And to have the right back office person to translate your numbers and your story to your CPAs, so that your CPAs can, communicate to powers that be. Because you're going to need people, you're going to need the banks to believe and invest in you, as well as the bonding companies to feel secure that you're a minimal risk, not a big risk, somebody that they can get behind. So that's what back office means to me. So.
All right, thank you. Erica?
Working at the President's Council, which has been an engine for Black business growth since 1996, has been extraordinary for me. Basically because I get an opportunity to not just talk about doing, but actually doing and serving my Black communities. And that's why this work is important to me.
Thank you very much, Dan.
And I'll add here, as Chris mentioned, I'm a business litigator, but I also have a government relations practice. And, specifically talking about the legal side of the back office, the role has changed of a lawyer, more so of your traditional legal, to more of a business counselor. So I think, when you talk about the back office, a lot of my role nowadays are advising business on where they should invest, how they should invest, what they should do, obviously protecting their legal protections, but also serving as an HR manager a little bit of an accountant, kind of the jack of all trades. So, having that expertise, I think, is critical in the back office. And Ariane made a point that she took it right out of my mouth earlier. You want to invest in that in the front end and not do it in the back end, because I'm very expensive at the back end, but I can be very cheap at the front end. So
being proactive rather than being reactive. And I'm sorry, Chris, but I was in the Emerging Entrepreneurs Program, and I think it is an excellent program for minorities to participate in, because they cover everything. You know, we had, just like Michael Obies works with both organizations, but you know, it helps you understand. If you don't go to school for business, it helps you look at your business the right way. So yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
And building your
That's very true. Even in those programs, I do remember just even the camaraderie that the classmates had. You know, we had cohort number 3 and cohort number 10. So we actually were able to compare war stories, right? And because as entrepreneurs, small business owners, you feel like sometimes you're on an island, right? And so you don't want to be off that. Get off that island, right? Let's get on to a group where we are all cohabitating. Okay, I know this probably sounds crazy. Okay, next question. Before I get myself in any more HR trouble here, how important was mentorship in your development and growth, and how did you network and gain access to mentors?
I'd love to start that one.
Okay, go ahead, please.
I had the privilege of having a board that had some really dynamic females, black females who were strong and loud and unapologetic, and who were willing to kick me under the table, pull my coattail, say, "Come here, let me tell you something." One of those people is Arian Kirkpatrick, who still will call me up or text me and say, "What was that about?" Or "Good job," even. Tamika Taylor, and also other females that were just around. You have to be okay with walking up to someone and saying, "Hey, can I ask you a question?" It doesn't always have to be formal mentorship, but you can learn from everybody. And so you have to open yourself up to receive. And my mentorships continue to this day and help me grow and have helped develop my voice as I progress in becoming a leader. And now that I am in a position where others are coming to me, I have to give that same sort of patience and advice. So mentorship has played an extraordinary role in my life.
To follow up on what Eric is saying there, the key to the networking and mentorship is listening. A lot of times, a lot of folks want to just walk in and talk and know things. And, as I have built my legal practice in my career, it very much is reaching out to the people that, quote unquote, unreachable, untouchable, taking that shot and just listening and being a sponge. And then you take a little bit of Erica, I take a little bit of Kyle, I'll take a little bit of Laura, then that's what makes Mike. So in listening and having that broad range of perspective on things, it goes a long way. And I mean, frankly, I tell a lot of the kids I mentor, or the young people I mentor, is you're not going to get the $1 million contract next year. So this is a time, you have to put the time, the effort, the passion, and then things will change. And I mean, I'm at the point in my career now where I'm finally starting to turn that corner a little bit. Like, why are people calling me, asking me stuff? I don't know anything. But, they're starting to call me now and getting to that point. But that's, 20 years in the making of networking and trying to mentor folks. So I say, patience and listening are key.
I think that going out and looking for a mentor doesn't necessarily work. That it is all about developing relationships over time, and you find people that might help you in all sorts of places that you wouldn't expect. So being open to getting to know your customers better, your suppliers better, and the vendors that you work with, you never know. And so I think being authentic and really trying to get to know people, even beyond the business a little bit, can really pay dividends along the road.
Yeah, not necessarily like a forced relationship where you're just, putting on airs. So fortunately for me, my greatest mentor was my dad. And, I went into the business because of my father, because I worked for him for a long time. And fortunately, he had a lot of success. So I was able to learn. But also, you got to be able to learn from failures as well. But I have several mentors in my life, and they're not all necessarily minorities, but majority firms. And I can say that CEA, I guess I'm not loud enough. CEA has made a way for me to make relationships with majority companies that do the same thing that I do, and you will be amazed that if you have success, they know about you beforehand, so they get to put a face with a name, so you're able to build stronger relationships that could possibly lead to opportunities to partner in different upcoming projects. So yeah, mentorship isn't like a one and done. It's a over the years authentic relationship. So yeah, that's it.
All right, that's beautiful. So what I actually hear all four of you saying is that it becomes part of a trusted circle, right? They have to trust you to be able to mentor you, right? Are you going to show up on time for these appointments, right? Are you going to do what you say you're going to do, right? You're going to follow through. So that's part of it. And then, we talk about mentorship all the time, but I know I've had mentors, and I actually mentor as well, but then you also have sponsors. People that are sponsoring you and speaking well of you in those meetings, in those board committee meetings that you're not even in, right? And so that actually has helped, many of your career paths, and I know it helped me with mine, because they said, you know what, Chris is that guy that you want to invest in. And so Kyle is that person, right? Eric is that person, Mike's that person, Laura's that person. So it's a trusted circle, and having that roadmap and having those relationships where people trust you and now they want to invest in you and see you grow, right? Okay, so thank you very much on that. So based on your experiences, what is the one key opponent that all businesses need and why? One thing. That'll be hard for me to answer.
So I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I think you need a lawyer. I really do. I think you really need you need a legal background. At the end of the day, especially when you get into some of and we'll use the construction industry. If you're getting into some complex deals, you're gonna need somebody who's an expert to looking at those agreements, because I have been in situations where I'm looking at some of my clients, I'm like, oh, they're gonna take you to the woodshed here. Then you wouldn't have even saw it. It's an and or. It's literally something that small that could change the whole, face of a deal. So, I would say, look, I get it. Lawyers are expensive. I know what everybody says, but there's also ways to get around that. I know I'm kind of going off track here, but I see all the time majority firms bring in lawyers and give them equity in the deal. So if I get 1% equity of your construction deal, that covers your legal fees right there. So little things like that, to be creative with your lawyer, I guess is my point, can pay for that legal. So, I know self-serving there, but I had to say it. So
I love it. Well, that's why you're here.
I'm going to agree with Michael.
There you go.
But I'm going to take it a step further. It's not just the attorney, it's your professional services team. So I think that includes your legal, your HR, your payroll, your accounting. So it's not just one of those, it's the entirety of it. So that is the component, the team that services you and supports and protects you.
Yes. Very good. You forgot to mention IT, but I knew that was on your mind.
So I'm gonna be different than the rest, because I a relationship with the Lord, because I'm telling you, when it all falls apart, there's nobody, if you broke, I've seen people come from the ashes and rise again, and you just don't know what to do. You can have all the money in the world, but if you don't know where to spend it, or what to do, it's not going to save you. I see a lot of people with a lot of money, and they you just throw. I was just watching this morning CNBC, Goldman Sachs, just to keep people from quitting, because the young Generation X, I guess, I don't know what generation this is. Yeah. So they're all been out. They just got their bonuses, and they're they're thinking about quitting their job, but what they decided, Goldman Sachs is just giving them a bonus. They just threw $20,000 more to everybody just to retain their people.
Okay.
But you know, I learned a long time ago, people don't go to work for a company just because of money, especially this new generation. They have to buy into they have to feel it's more than just money to them. You know, our generation, yeah, you throw some money at us and, you know, you'll keep us. But it needs to be something more. So, I agree. Having a good attorney, which I had a good attorney. I had a good accountant, but could have been better. But, I mean, you do have to have the right people. I read a book, you have to have the right people on the bus and in the right seats. You know, because Good to Great was one, and the other one I forget the name, but that one was through Goldman Sachs program. But that's it.
Yeah, this was kind of a tough question. When I first thought about it, I thought about what Erica shared, and all those different pieces, parts are so important. But when I think about it a little bit more, I mean, if we really have to pick a single one, and this may reflect thinking of younger companies a little bit, but I just think about record keeping and bookkeeping. And even if your bookkeeping is on an Excel spreadsheet, you got to know what you have. You got to know what you owe. You have to know not only that you're making money, that you're profitable, and you have a gross profit margin and a net margin, but you need to know how cash is circulating throughout your company. Because if you don't do that, or you're kind of winging it, you're not going to be able to survive. So, and you're not also with many of the small business owners we've worked with through our Next Step program. I know for many of them, and many of you watching, and all of you, there are reasons why you're doing this. You like what you do, but you may also be wanting to hire people that look like you and change the community and pass down wealth to future generations. And so having these fundamentals is so, so important.
All right, thank you so much.
You know, excuse me. So she's right about the accounting and knowing what you're making. One thing so my company, we're rebuilding, and one thing that I learned, if you have more money going out than you have going in, like if you tap into your line of credit, that's what you don't want to do. You want to have it, but you don't want to live off of it. It's almost like living on a credit card. You know, that's a recipe for disaster. Because if you don't owe anybody anything, you can just walk away and go get a job with nothing, no looking behind your back. So that's very important. But it's so easy as an entrepreneur because you always think that next job is coming when it might not ever come. So you might have to, and one good thing about being an entrepreneur, you have to be able to adapt and change, because maybe your one source of income is different. You need to have you have to have more than just one source of
diversify,
income. You definitely have to diversify as an entrepreneur.
I would just say real quick, I would say there is value in having debt, but we'll get to that.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll get to it.
Okay.
So those are very good, and I even remember Lisa and Arian speaking earlier, and they were talking about even during the COVID-19 pandemic, right? Federal government offered, and the state governments and local governments offered all of this PPP money and all these loans and grants and scholarships. However, if you didn't have your books in order, or you didn't have that employee, then you weren't eligible, right? And so many companies missed out on some of those opportunities, right? And so this is another reason why we're trying to build that back office. How important is it to develop or create an informal board of advisors for your business? I know big companies do it, Fortune 500, they have these huge boards. How important is it for the small guy to have a board of advisors? Small one.
So thought in isolation is dangerous.
Yes.
You need to have other people to vet your ideas and processes. So for me, it would be extremely important.
You know, yeah, from a legal aspect, I mean, the checks and balances, you got to have that. You know, a lot of times we're a small business, it's a company of two. Me, Chris and I are partners. We disagree on something. Who's breaking that tie? You know, which way are we going to go? How are we going to split up all the assets? How are we going to split up all the debts? You know, how are we going to figure this out? So, I mean, yes, I think very important from my perspective.
Everybody agrees? He's like, yes, yes, yes. So you're saying that yellow marshmallows from Venezuela those are not maybe a good idea, you know, to sell in the marketplace? No?
Not right.
No.
Not right now? Not in this market? Okay. All right. So how can small businesses work in the political arena to influence policy changes? Why is this important?
How can we?
Yes.
A shameless plug for NAMC. That's what our organization is about, is advocacy. We've learned, I would say I learned it from being involved in AGC and CEA, because they shamelessly use the organization to throw the rock and hide their hand, because you can hide behind the organization and, you know, and try to affect policy for their own advancement, and we need to be doing the same thing. We need to learn from the big boys, the ones that are successful, because if we don't, we're not going to be around. I mean, there's so many things that are going on behind the scenes, and we need to be aware. We need to have someone like Mike down there advocating for us down at the state level, making sure that, you know, just like that disparity study that came out for the county, that we're not getting less than 1% of the work, you know, so that, you know, people that look like us, our community can survive and thrive. You know, I came through the era and, you know, whatnot, but I came up in the 70s, and, you know, I was telling Laura, I lived in the inner city of Cleveland, and I remember having the black corner store people, you know, own the corner stores like for generations and stuff, and, you know, but now you go to those same stores, if they're around, and there are people from foreign lands running the stores, and it's not the same. Those owners were able to put their kids through school. They were able to support their families. So that's it.
So just to add on to a lot of what Kyle was saying, you know, when you look at the big company, you know, I represent a bigger company. Right now we're tracking 50 bills at the State House, all having to do in the construction development industry. And those things are impacting the Kyles of the world just like they're impacting, you know, the big boys of the world. So being proactive in that, and what I mean is tracking the bills. Go down there and testify. I mean, you'll be shocked just being in the State House and talking to legislators how far you're going. And do not be scared to pick up the phone and call legislators. I mean, I know Chris knows this very well about me. I'm not scared to call a Terrence Upchurch or Stephanie House and say, hey, you know, I have a client who needs A, B, C, D done. Or by saying, hey, we want to be able to advocate and explain to you what NAMC is doing. Why are we here? The benefits of having us. Then they can turn around and be your messengers. You know, this is kind of cutting against paying me, but sometimes you may want them to be your messengers, and you need to go down there and be your own messenger. So I get it. On top of the 14 hours a day work, it's like, oh, now you're asking me to track policy. But a lot of times there's a lot of grant programs that are missed. There's a lot of tax cuts, to be honest, that are missed to companies because they're just not paying attention to those things. So, you know, to me, this is one of those things that's a sweet spot to me that I think is very important.
I just saw this morning or yesterday, Kevin Johnson, who I believe is the board chair at COSI now, was tweeting that he was going down to Columbus, you know, to lobby the legislators there. And I know that they, and many trade associations, this one as well, often invite a group of people, right, to go along with them. So in some ways you can have an organization track what's going on, but then you can also spend a day, right, out of your busy schedule going down and really understanding how this works and feeling like you are part of something bigger.
I want to say join your Black Business Chamber, because they are the ones that are carrying the Black agenda, and most deals do not happen in public. They happen in private conversations, and we are the ones in those rooms, at those tables, having those conversations, promoting what our people are saying are the challenges, barriers, and things that are important to them. So if you're spending your dollars with a counterpart, you need to be spending your dollars with your Black Business Chamber.
Hey, real quick, and I'm not going to belabor this point here, but what's interesting about our political dynamic in the state of Ohio right now is really it's driven by a world agenda. But those world agendas are kind of similar to what is going on for Black businesses. I mean, access to the internet, broadband, those kind of things. Yeah, it's a world agenda, but they also very much apply to Black businesses, and trying to find, something like, and I'm going to use broadband as an example. That's a central issue that can get done in the State House because there's so many people who are interested in it. So trying to locate those issues and policy changes. I mean, look, there's certain things we can all be honest with each other that are never going to get out of a committee at the State House. But if you can find an issue that you think you can partner with, you should 100% do so.
All right, thank you. And Laura, I know Kevin Johnson and Tamika Taylor's going to love that shout out. I'm actually on that committee going down there as well. It's cozy at the State House, something like that. I think it's next week. So that really should be a very interesting conversation. I'm actually going to pepper something in that I just received from someone online. Right? We have some very active people on Zoom chat and Facebook, etc. And so one of the questions that they ask is who and what people do you put on your board of advisors? Is it cousin Mitch? Is it Auntie Samantha? Who's gonna be on your board of advisors and why?
Don't put cousin Mitch. Don't really think long and hard about that. I'm sure many of you out there have either put family members on a board or you've hired family members. And that's a double-edged sword, right? Because if it doesn't work out, it can take you a very long time to figure out. I know that's not the question you asked, but this is something to know. It can take a long and difficult time to release that person back out into the marketplace, and not to say what it might do with the relationship. So, what do they say? Long to hire, quick to fire, but really think about your family members.
That makes Thanksgiving and Christmas tough. You're right.
And when you're looking for a board of advisors, I would say look at what some of the bigger companies are doing. I mean, it's all public information. You can Google Eaton Corp's board of directors and see who's on there and see what their expertises are. Or, take Eaton Corp out of there. Look at a business that's structured similar to yours and say, well, let's see who's on their kind of board of directors and say, oh, okay, I need somebody with corporate governance. I need somebody who's got, legal background or whatever it may be. And kind of doing your homework and say, okay, these are the broad categories of kind of people I need. Take those categories and then kind of drill down and, okay, this is what I want. It's no different than what the president's count. Eric and I were just having this conversation earlier about, okay, her job as the executive director is to know what the needs of the organization are and to fill those needs. So, I think that would be probably the easiest way to do it.
Exactly what Michael just said. We had a conversation. We have Legal Gap on our board. Michael, would you like to be on the board?
Are you putting me on the spot?
But that's also a way when we were talking about what is the singular component that you need and building that wraparound services, that's a way to get that. And also to possibly get it, that advice for free because they're your advisory board. So get that HR professional, that legal professional, that accounting professional on your advisory board. And now you've got both.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Kyle, you have anything to add to that? You said everything. That is very true.
And an IT person.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you very much.
And marketing.
And marketing.
IT is really important nowadays.
Yeah. It super is. It's for a plethora of reasons, right? We're all on Zoom and Teams and really working, really trying to find ways to work safely, right? And that's why we're sheltering in place and creating hybrid scenarios and flexibility and everything else. All right, don't get me to start talking. I'm supposed to be moderating. Okay, so what are some of the ways that small businesses can team with others to go after larger projects? I'm gonna start with you, Kyle.
So I've been on several teams, and what generally happens, which I would like to see change, the larger companies know about stuff coming way before we do. And I don't know, I think the owners just call them, contact them. And, you know, they have the wherewithal and the money. They have people doing business development, calling and, hey, what's going on? But there are relationships that are built there that they talk to each other. And I don't really know if they're gonna really talk. If I had a guy who was called, or a gal who basically called them all the time, would they call and be as open, you know, because I'm a minority? I don't know. It just seems like it's still like kind of good old boy, even though it's better. You know, diversity is. I think Cleveland is getting better as far as diversity, but I'm sure we have a long way to go. But you know, I see movement in the right direction, because at one point there was only like one to three companies that got all that kind of work. So it's kind of opening up a little bit.
Spreading out. So you're saying really a lot of relationships. So a lot of this is based on relationships.
Yeah, a lot of things are based on.
Okay. Anyone
I
else?
think we have to stop seeing ourselves as such competitors and more as collaborators, because I can't beat you at being you, you can't beat me at being me. But when we bring those differences together, then that creates this superpower of ours. And so as long as we know that there's an opportunity that I may not have the capacity as Erica to do it, but with Michael, Kyle, and Laura, now we are a super team.
Sure.
And we qualify, we have the capacity to do this job that can bring in money for all of us.
That's very true.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think partnerships are key, and unfortunately, you know, I think as black businesses, we don't do that as much as we should. I know, you know, I think it's starting, Kyle, to your point, you know, things are starting to get a little bit better with that, and those conversations are starting to happen. But I remember there used to be a time you couldn't even say that out in a public forum like this about how black people need to be partnering and going after work. I'm saying it now, which is a start that we're moving forward to that. But, you know, I really think that is the key, because, you know, like Erica said, my 15, Kyle's 15, Laura's 15, and Erica's 15. Well, now we match the majority kind of companies. So I couldn't agree with that more.
Laura, before you answer, and I don't know if you were planning on answering, but I do know that you also work in the lead, L-E-E-D arena. And so, with that in mind, could you answer some of that? You're like this, what do you want me to answer? Just small businesses, and I don't even know if that's a small business, but how can you partner with other agencies
In that environmental sustainability
Yes.
arena? You know what, I don't know if it's any different, you know, than partnering on anything else, but there definitely are architecture design firms, other firms that have those certifications and probably know the ins and outs. And so doing your homework and your research on who those are in the region could be beneficial. What I was going to also say is that working in University Circle, I know that our larger anchor institutions, and this just isn't in the circle, it could be any hospital or any university, you know, depending upon, I think, the economy and which way the wind is blowing, there's either an effort to, over a campus, like over a region, to give, you know, to identify some smaller contracts for things. But then there's also a desire to cut costs, right? And do things as efficiently as possible. And so it's not feasible anymore to carve out all these small jobs. And I really think there are certain areas, certain services where if contractors would come together, they could go after some of these jobs that the really large institutions are going out to get bids on.
All right, thank you so much there. I appreciate it. I told you I was going to pick on you. You're like, Chris, some of these things are not applicable to me. It's like, no, we're going to make them applicable, right? Because I'm that guy.
It's all good. It's all fine.
And then in addition to that, and we're getting additional questions from the studio audience there and from the online audience. One of the things I really want to talk about, and this really got the juices flowing. I think the first time I heard about this it was a GCP fireside chat we had with Brian Hall, right? And President's Council. So Brian actually wears a couple of hats. But he talked about this Cleveland State study, right, that listed 90% of black-owned businesses are one-man shops, right, solopreneurs. It also stated that if one business hired just one person, that's two, the unemployment rate pre-COVID would drop from 4.8% to 1.8%. So when does a business know if it's time to hire an employee rather than hire a 1099 contractor? What needs to be in place, and how did that one-man shop grow? There's a lot of questions in there, right? It's
That was to the attorney.
there you go.
Well, so I'm going to answer this as a business counselor, not a lawyer. This is going to sound basic, so bear with me. But when you have the money to afford to hire a W-2 employee, I mean, a lot of this is you got to kind of build one brick at a time. I know, bad pun, but you got to build one brick at a time, and you'll get a feeling. You'll know when it's time. Arian talked about earlier. Hey, I want my employees to stay here. So, what do you do to keep employees to stay? Give them health insurance. Give them a retirement plan. Give them some incentive to stay. So I would say, really, I know this is probably not the most technical answer, but you'll know when it's time. I mean, you'll know when Chris House is burning both ends of the candle and errors start occurring in your business to say, ooh, maybe I need to bring on an HR person because I'm in way over my head and this is not my expertise. And, things are going good and we're trying to be slim, but I'm making big mistakes that probably I don't need to be making.
Okay, you're good. All right, I think
I nailed that one down. Everybody else said anything. That was that good.
Okay.
I tossed it. I'll just add to that. A 1099 gives you really more, doesn't give you as much loyalty perhaps, but it gives you flexibility.
Yeah.
So you may know you need something now. It's a 6-month gig maybe. I don't know what it might be, but it's bringing on that expertise and knowing that it will be not going into it with doom and gloom, but knowing it'll be over at some point soon, as opposed to making a big investment and bringing on a full-time employee.
Right.
So that's something to think about. I think long and hard as well.
I mean, even speaking from my own vantage point, obviously I started off with 1099s, and you grow to that. But if you have, everything becomes transactional, and when it doesn't become transactional, when it becomes long term, now you can actually spread out a little bit, right? You're not on a small recliner, you're on a nice little sofa, right? And so you have room to hire, right? But if you only have that, I'm gonna do this one transaction, right? Fix this one computer, I'm just gonna look at this one contract, right? Then, all right, I might just have to use this 1099 just for this project. But if it's a 3-year, 5-year term, now let me build my infrastructure, let me build my team, right? And we can go forward, grow and scale. Now you can start looking for other business. You can start doing some more collaborative things, right? So thank you for that. I truly appreciate it. Another question that came in, and I'm getting the high sign. I think we only have about 10 minutes left. But how do we go about returning to face-to-face, but also holding on to those virtual relationships that are just working so swell now in this past year, right?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm old school, so I think face-to-face, nothing beats face-to-face interaction. Zoom is necessary for now, but you don't really build relationships on Zoom, I don't think. It's the getting together and the face to face. Because I have meetings all the time on Zoom, but I can't tell you that I'm really building relationships with people because I'm not. Sometimes on Zoom you cut off the camera and you're not really face to face. You're just you hear the voice and you're having a conversation, but you're not. I like being in front of you. So how you make the transition, I don't know.
To Council, I think it's naturally going to happen. I mean, look, in my business, a lot of business is done on the golf course. Can't play golf over Zoom. So, there's certain, and really, even in the construction business, a lot of these, take the golf course out of, you name whatever it is. A lot of business is done on those, that one-on-one, that face-to-face. I don't know who's listening to Zoom. Maybe I want to have a conversation that's not, over the phone. I want to have a face-to-face conversation and having those. So I think naturally, at least, in the businesses that we're all in, it's kind of just going to naturally go back to that, especially as the vaccines come.
Right.
I think as we think about how we run our business, which is separate than building and nurturing relationships, we have to embrace this new normal because there is a great deal of greater efficiency with the remote work. And let's just be real, the excuses that you can't get it done remote is out the window. We've already demonstrated that can be done. And so you have to take that into account when you're thinking of your employees, because work-life balance is really important. And if your employees are producing in a remote environment, that's an incentive that allows them to stay with your business. But it's up to you, again, as that individual, when we circle back around to where we started talking about mentorships, to build and develop those relationships and call someone and go out for a drink. That's you one-on-one. But the technology needs to remain in place, and we have to accept that.
And to Erica's point, I agree with her. Rather than having to be somewhere for a meeting, driving across town, it is so much easier to, tune in to have a Zoom meeting, than having to worry about, you're pressed for time and you have to be there. So I like that aspect, but as far as building relationships, I do still think face to face. So.
That's beautiful. So, as I think about it, you talk about 1099s. I've had several 1099s, quite a few over time, and I've actually hired some of those 1099s, right? It's almost kind of like a little trial and error thing, right? And so some of those relationships end up being long lasting, right? It's almost like an apprenticeship or internship. So that's beautiful here. That leads me to, I guess, my last question here, because I'm getting a high side here. And so how, if I'm a one-man shop, I have all my tools of the trade, right? What back office functions can I contract out without losing my mind and still be able to effectively run my company? And I got one thing to say: trust but verify. So please, go ahead.
I think you can contract all of these out. I mean, the bookkeeping, the legal, the IT, the marketing, HR. I know we've covered them, a bunch of different times while we've talked this morning. You don't necessarily, though, depending upon what stage you're at, need to contract all of those out. I mean, that does get expensive, and you may not be able to afford it. You may also be able to find a firm that does a certain thing, and they're kind of like HR for hire, right? Or CFO for hire. So there are a lot of different ways to strike a deal with the expertise that you need. And talk with people in your trade association, talk with business peers, inside or outside of your industry if it's easier, and find out what they're doing and kind of learn from them.
Yep, I agree. As far as HR services, I refer to one of our members, a PEO company that I use, and they do all the human resources. They do they do the payroll. They do the taxes. They do health insurance. Everything that, you know, back office functions that help make that large companies, organizations have, we can do it as a small business through the PEO. Not only that, but our EMR rates are lower because we're a part of that PEO. So EMR is very important when it comes to certain clients, private clients, because they want to make sure that, you know, your EMR, that you're not a risk as far as casualties or insurance, because their insurance companies look at the risk just like ours. So
I'm going to deviate just a little bit, but go back to something you and Arian touched on earlier. Internships. It's important to use our students to give them the experience, but also build those relationships and create that pipeline. The President's Council has an initiative where we provide grants to businesses to hire and pay interns, because we want our Black students to be able to work for successful entrepreneurs. So there's a double benefit to the business that gets to hire human capital infusion, gets that talent, but also to the student, the scholar, who now has a relationship, who has exposure, who has experience, that hopefully once when they graduate from college will bring all of those talents right back here to Northeast Ohio.
I'll quickly add just a point that Kyle made earlier about using your trade associations. I mean, there's some of those probably outsourcing you can do, you know, through your trade association. Most trade associations have legal, you know. Once again, I'm shortcutting myself, but you know, you can use the trade association to do the legal work and some of those kind of things. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely use the trade associations and use that as a tool.
You can even outsource someone picking up the phone. We talked about that a lot, Chris, in our class.
Yeah.
There are services out there where, you don't have to answer the phone. And somebody else will do it.
Yeah, you get your virtual assistants and all of that, absolutely. So technology makes that possible. So this was a very informative session, right? I got the high sign a couple times here, so I'm going to close this. But I want to thank all of you for participating on this panel. And everyone, to me, did an excellent job. You're an excellent resource. And like I said, I feel even better now sharing my network, right? So I shared my network to the world. And I'm going to leave you with Lisa Bottoms, who is going to close and end the session. Thank you.
All right, so I think I learned a lot this session, you know, really about the back office is essential. You can figure out a way to get the services you need. You just might need to be creative. Don't be afraid to ask. I might go up to Mike and say, look, Mike, I've got X amount of money, and I need this. How can we figure it out, right? But I have to ask. I think that's what I heard.
That's right.
You have to go up to the people you need. You have to know what you need. And even if you don't quite know what you need, be clear about where you are. So I think that's really good, really good. So I want to thank everyone for attending our third Level Up session, Building a Back Office. Our next Level Up session will be April 22nd. And this topic will be Knowing Your Construction Numbers. It'll be hosted by our NAMC member, Shakiri Davis. And I wanted you to consider joining the NAMC team here. We're here to help you. We want your business to grow, to be strong, and to make a difference in Northern Ohio. So please tell a friend. Follow us on social media. And we hope to see you April 22nd. Now, what I would also like to do is to thank our sponsors. We would like to thank Verna Lee, the Candy Lady, who is providing us all kinds of treats and for our guest panelists, so you'll be getting a treat. We also want to thank our fantastic sponsors today, Calfee Halter and Griswold LLP, First Energy Foundation, Corporate College East for the fabulous facility that we're in, and to our technology host, Low Key Entertainment. Thank you again for joining us. Oh, and lastly, how could I forget? Our sponsor, Turner Construction. They have just come on board, so we're welcoming them. Thank you for being here, Turner. And we will thank you again, and we will see you April 22nd for knowing your construction numbers. Thank you, panelists.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.